Howdy, all. I'm reminded of the line from Godfather 3 when it comes to the weather in Buffalo. We had like 45-degree temperatures, the snow all melted, and just when they thought we were out, they pulled us back in. It's like we got the snow last night, and of course now I have to drive up to Toronto tomorrow and put my life in my hands on the QEW. Go ahead, Russ.
All right, so I just wanted to do a quickie on the Grammys. There was an interesting thing going on because, they had the Grammys the other night, and apparently there was only one Grammy for a female artist, and that was for Best Female Artist. But nobody really made a big deal about it at that moment. But then an interview came out with the guy who's in charge of the Grammys saying that women needed to step it up. And that caused a firestorm. And you know what? I don't blame the female artists at all, because what they were basically saying is step it up. Like, look how many popular and famous female artists there are. And there are some mega talented people. But I noticed that like Halsey sent out a tweet, and I'm not a fan of her music, but I'm certainly aware of who she is. And what she said was great. And she had like a 4-part tweet. And part of it was maybe the Grammys are just a sham. Maybe we need to see these votes and let them, be transparent. And I'm all for that. And I think, you know what? They're going to need to do that at some point, because it's hard to justify those results.
That goes along with a lot of things, and maybe this is a discussion we can get into, is the fact that transparency. I know that there was a big thing back a few years ago with Dan Le Batard with the Baseball Hall of Fame, him revealing his ballot, and now some of the writers are doing that. Should there be transparency when it comes to votes for Halls of Fame or for awards like the Academy Awards? I actually think it should be. Maybe after the fact, obviously, but there should be transparency.
Yeah, it's funny. Coincidentally, we talked about that at the writers' meeting of the Professional Hockey Writers Association, and as we've talked before on this show, when I was president, that was an issue every year. And years ago, it was about 50-50 on transparency. And at USA Today, we always post our balance, and I as a general rule, favor transparency for voting for awards. But the argument from a lot of the guys is that, the idea of a secret ballot is a time-honored tradition in America, that you should be able to vote your conscience without fear of any repercussions or any pressure putting on you. We do that with our elected officials and so forth.
And the Illuminati. Yeah.
The Illuminati.
And based on this election, Kevin, I'm sure a lot of people want to keep their votes secret.
There's no doubt about that. But anyway, the one thing I will tell you, I don't want to give away too much of what was discussed at our meeting, but we do sense a shift in how writers feel about that. And I think as we move on, I think more and more feel like, we should just make it available, because for the most part, writers are certainly not fearful of letting their opinions show. We do that every day. But there are some folks that just feel that it would be better for them if they just don't need the aggravation. They'd rather keep it a secret. But I would guess that at some point, I don't know when it'll be, you will see that. Baseball already does that, the Baseball Writers Association. They make theirs, available. So anyway, will it be this year? I don't have an answer to that, but I would agree with Russ on that. I don't know why we don't make, and in fact, in this day and age, is when you're, looking to increase the number of people to your website, another reason to do it. If you post your vote, people will go and read it. They want to know how you voted, and whether they can tell you that you're an idiot or they love it based on you voted for their person.
And believe me, I have a lot of people tell me that I'm an idiot. But Russ, just going back to the Grammys for a second, I watched about maybe 10 minutes of it, and the only part of it that I recognize is when they did the in memoriam, the artists that had passed away. Other than that, I hardly knew anybody who was on the damn thing. So I think it's.
Speaking of that, I just saw on Twitter that. And I actually made me chuckle, and terrible that I should chuckle at this, but he said, we used to see the memoriam because we wanted to see who had passed away, and, you wanted to honor them. He goes, now it's to see who they missed. He said, there's no doubt in my mind that people look at that and immediately all they're thinking for is who they miss. He says they all have their fingers on the button because they want to be the first to get out there. And I chuckle because, that's probably true. That is probably true. I bet people were looking at, and I'm going to start with you two because you guys, are in that world. Were you thinking that as you were watching that? I'm just
I didn't watch, so I can't say. I never think it when I watch it, though. I actually there is just sort of sadness, and there's always one or two that I say, wow, I didn't realize that, especially with the Oscars. So that's how I usually feel.
That's what happens to me in the Oscars. I'm with you on that. It's usually someone who's an older actor, and I'd say, oh, I missed that.
Right.
He passed away. I agree with you on that.
Actually, the thing that sprung up to mind when they were doing that for the Grammys were two people, and I know that they sang in movies and they probably released albums, but they had Jim Nabors and Jerry Lewis amongst the in memoriam for music, and you just don't associate Jerry Lewis.
Jim Nabors more so.
Jim Nabors more so, yes.
Well, no, but here's the thing. Yes, Jim Nabors had an amazing voice, and I remember being shocked as a kid, and he did have albums. He did.
Yes.
Yeah.
Jerry Lewis had comedy albums. We got to remember, spoken word albums do get Grammys.
Yeah, no, that's fair. That's fair. So
they were you were kids. Comedy albums. I mean, they were really.
Oh my God, the 2,000-Year-Old Man was maybe the best.
They were really big. I mean, I had all the Monty Python records when I was a kid.
Fire Sign Theater.
Richard Pryor, when in my era. Richard Pryor, boy, when his stuff came out,
yes,
you got all your buddies together and you make sure there were no parents.
Yeah, right. Carlin and Fire Sign Theater were a couple of.
I'll give you one that was surprisly good that maybe you never listened to, but somebody did turn me on to. The Bob Newhart stuff was amazing.
Yeah, this phone calls, that was his shtick. He did great.
Yeah, I've always liked him. I'm just from all of his shows. All right,
let's get started. So let's start it off, Ak.
Let's go. Okay, here we go. It is we'll call it the 30th of January.
Good, because it is.
It's been a day, folks. It's been a day. All right, here we go. Hello, Hockey World. It is Monday, January 30th.
Nope.
No.
It's
Tuesday. Yeah, you were very close.
You're just on.
God, I was so convinced it was Monday too. I said to myself, "It's Monday, right? Yeah, it's Monday. Yeah, right. Hello, Hockey World. It's Tuesday, January 30th, 2018.
I'm Michael Jello.
I'm Russ Cohn from Sportsology.
Kevin Allen, USA Today Sports.
And I am Eklund, and you're watching the Hockey Buzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. This is the podcast that comes to you every Monday through Friday at this time or somewhere in the afternoon. This time around. To fill you on the comings and goings in the hockey world, and always available on iTunes and where better podcasts are sold or given away or whatever app you have. And I wanted to start today with the question because I'm currently putting together I've done this before, you guys know, the video game teams, and what I'm doing for this year is I'm going to do the Olympics as if the NHL players were going. So I've been putting together that, and I've been using Kevin's team from the USA Today, and I've been using Eric DeHachik's team for Team Canada, and a couple other people. I've got a Russian guy who writes for us to come up with Alvin, to come up with a Russian team, and stuff like that. So I'm trying to put together. So my question for Kevin, as I go into this final weekend of what, because I'm going to do this next week, has Brock Besser worked his way on to the Team USA?
Yeah, I'd say so. When I put that together, it was a long time ago, and but I would guess so. It'd be that quick release. I'd have to take a look. I don't have the team in front of me, but just off to my top of that, I would say yes, because there's the only problem is, the extra guy, they always want it to be a center because they're afraid they're going to run out of centers. But I just can't imagine not having him on there. I mean, this guy's a projected 40-goal scorer now based on his scoring rate. So now he's the All-Star MVP. Not that that means anything, but just adds to his resume in his rookie season. So
it does, and it's amazing how I feel like most people in the NHL, I mean, people on Hockey Buzz or people who watch, read us or whatever, know who Brock Besser is, but I think a lot of people don't. And a lot of your relatively casual hockey fans around at least the East Coast here would not have any idea who Brock Besser is, right? So they the All-Star weekend was they always say coming out party, this was the real deal for him as far as
I think unless you were a hardened NCAA fan, that I just think that's a lot of people sort of dismissed him at the draft because he had injuries in the past. And so they got limited views of him. He missed certain games and tournaments. And so I think he did slip through the cracks that way to like the average hockey fan. I do. I think you're right.
And Vancouver's a team that
he was pretty hot though at the draft among scouts.
Yes.
I remember he was a guy that was more of a scouts guy, proving that they guys who do this for a living, than a sports writer just trying to, sort of keep track of it a little bit.
Right.
We knew who he was, but I think most of us moved him up on our list based on the scouts saying, this guy's out there, and boy, it's his. And I remember what they talked about was his release.
Well, Ken, let me ask this, because we know that Willie Desjardins is going to be the coach for Canada, and obviously, if it had been the NHL going there, more than likely would have been Babcock again, because he's chosen for every team, and I think he would have he considers it an honor. Now, who would have been the choice for Team USA? Because we know that Tortorella got a lot of heat after the World Cup of Hockey. I mean, would it have been would have been Laviolette because of Nashville going to the Stanley Cup final?
I think it would have been Sullivan. Sullivan hasn't had a chance yet. I really felt that Doug Waite would have been a great choice. Well. But I don't want anything away from Sullivan. Sullivan's a terrific coach, and the way it sort of has worked in USA Hockey is they have sort of kind of a seniority system, like you sort of work your way into it, and everybody gets a chance. They're trying to spread it around a little bit and give everyone the opportunity. And I don't know that you could make a case for anyone being more worthy than Sullivan, who back to back.
Back-to-back Stanley Cups is enough, is all you have to say, right? He would have.
Yeah. Well, one thing about that American team too, boy, has it kind of changed in the last month.
It really has. That's what I wanted to talk about a little bit.
Like Jack Eichel now. Before, I think I had him as the number 3 center. Well, not anymore. He's up there. He's 1 and 2. It's Matthews and Eichel.
Yeah.
Pacioretty's numbers now look better. He's picked it up. His scoring pace in the last 3 or 4 weeks has been back more like his old. And I mentioned, if you look at my story that I wrote like 5 weeks ago, it's hard to ignore the consistency of his scoring over the last 5 years.
Yeah, it really is.
And I mentioned that I thought it was possible. Like there were guys that were gonna, but here's the thing. That team would have still been named on January 1st.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
right.
And
it would have been, I wonder how I should do it then. If I should stick with what it was then, or change it right up to the end. Because both you and Hatchick wrote your articles within like 4 or 5 days of each other. I noticed. So they were right. They were really close. So
I would stick with that then. Why not?
That. Yeah. I'm going to get a lot of people will be all over us about. But you mentioned Brock Besser. You said you.
Oh yeah, I said he would. He might be in. I mean, there were some guys that you knew, because I think mine came out, even well before January 1st.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but even then, like early on, you could tell the Besser, and don't you think we're more willing, we're more open to the younger players because of what's happening in the NHL? I mean,
yeah. Oh yeah. There's no question.
To younger players. So
when you look at the Team USA guys, I mean, you go down the line with Matthews, and Gaudreau and Besser and Eichel. It's just crazy. I mean, the youth movement in the USA Hockey, and really makes me.
And I want to tell you an interesting story because I know Russ and Mike will appreciate this. Russ and Mike recently had a discussion about both you guys would have preferred to see more college guys. Yes. And I had not heard that from anybody, but this week I've heard it from 2 people, one a general manager and one a guy who is former general manager and, certainly knows a lot about the league. And he just said, he was a guy I talked to recently. I wish they would take in more Americans. I said, really? I said, did you just think that would give them a better chance to win? He goes, oh, no. He said, I just would have preferred as a guy to see the guys who are.
Well, and I think that's where we were coming from too, Kev. It would have been more fun to watch.
Yeah.
That's what he said. It's not that he thought it would be more fun to watch. he thought he would prefer to see the guys on the way up to the NHL.
Well, that was the other thing we did say, like, hey, these could be your next guys for the next team. Yeah.
Right. So, but a couple of guys have said basically exactly what you did. Just the thinking that from the league's perspective, like, you know, and of course you'd want to help the league because they've been so helpful to, you know, Team Canada and Team US by.
But Kev, now that you've seen the unified roster, what percentage would you put at them as being the favorite? 5-1, 2-1.
I would for sure. I mean, I think what was Vegas came out. I remember originally they came out and I think they were 3-1 or something like that. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but anyway, I would say at least 5-1, 7-1. I mean, you look at the team and you know, every other team you look at, you're going, but you look at Russia and they're a bunch of guys, you know. So
is there anything worse though than Russians being favorites in international hockey? I mean, this is like the thing that
that's fair. That is totally fair, Eck. I've covered a lot of international hockey, and always a standard story is what sort of political shenanigans will cause the undoing of the Russian team.
Right.
So,
but I will say this in defense of the Russians, which I guess I'll be the one that defends the Russians here.
Well, no, I mean, they're obviously good, but
no. But in defense of them, going into this year's World Juniors, they had the most medals in like the last, I think it was 8 to 10 years.
Right.
So they had been the most consistent, even though they may not be winning gold as often. And so that's something where I think we're sort of putting that emphasis on the gold. But, you know, on the younger level, they did have a lot of consistency.
Well, yeah, younger level for sure, and that's, you know, that is true. But you know, then you just, I mean, Sochi, the pressure on them was so intense there. It just feels like, you know,
right,
they were favorites there. I think they would have been okay not being favorites in this one and just going in and winning it. You know, I think that, and maybe I'm super hypersensitive to this because obviously living in Philadelphia this week, all you're hearing is, the Eagles are underdogs in the Super Bowl. The Eagles are underdogs in the Super Bowl. You know, which of course they are, and they should be.
Yeah, it's 4 points. It's
underdog thing is played up so much that it's just like, who wants to be a favorite ever? I mean, you know, that's what you think yourself. Like, who wants to, you know, you would think that would be a great thing.
I'll disagree with that. I think that I would say in the last 2 or 3 years in sports, teams have sort of had this moniker of, well, we're not the favorite. Like Tom Brady even said,
they when they are the favorites,
they try and transfer that, right? But there were teams back in the day. If you'd have told Terry Bradshaw you were the underdog, he would have argued with you for an hour.
That's what I'm saying. I mean,
I think that's what X said, bro.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like back then, you know, those dynasty teams, they loved being the favorite. They lived on it.
Misunderstood you. Yeah.
Now you tell the Patriots the favorite. Tom Brady's like, screw you, we're not the favorite.
Right.
Teams like the Buffalo Bills, when they faced the Giants in 1990, they thought they were so much a favorite that they decided to party the entire week before the Super Bowl because they knew they were going to win. Well, it doesn't work that way.
We're going to see, if you go back a few days and then move forward to the Super Bowl, which is coming down. So in a week's time, or no, I guess it'd be 8 days time, we're going to see maybe 2 of the top 5 athletes of all time in successful situations if Brady wins. And I'm talking about Roger Federer in tennis, who, I mean, remarkable athlete that guy is. And he might be the most gracious athlete, ever. And, Gretzky would be up there too, but Federer is amazing. Like, my wife's a big tennis fan. I'm not, it's not, when I start listing sports, you got to go down a ways before I hit tennis, but my wife watches, so I watch it.
Federer is amazing. I watch.
Yeah. And he's, I've seen a lot of his Grand Slam matches because the television is on in our house. My mom, my wife,
right.
So,
right.
And I'm just so amazed at this guy, in that sport, it just seems like the top guys get up there, Djokovic and then Murray, and then they get injured and then they fall off. And his consistency has been remarkable.
I will give you one other guy, and it's not a popular sport, but Brian Oldfield owned his sport, owned it
for 4 Olympics, right?
4 Olympics. And that guy, if you want to just talk about dominance, I remember, and he was even like 38 or 40 in the last one and was still dominant.
You better tell the people what his sport is, because most of our people
shot put.
Yeah. So
No, I mean that's like that is that's something. You're right. I mean,
well, Usain Bolt would have.
Yeah, I was going to say Bolt over 3 Olympics.
Bolt is definitely.
Yeah.
I mean,
Bolt would be in the category as well, but
Edwin Moses for a while. I mean,
yeah, but I wouldn't put Moses.
Not with those guys though.
No, yeah,
I'm going to argue that Sidney Crosby's in that category, guys. Like I think that
he's not there yet.
I mean, what else can the guy do?
He can win more cups.
Yeah.
I mean, you've won a bunch of cups. You've won everything else. I mean, he's won everything he can possibly win. I mean,
hey, you get no argument from me.
I think he's got to be.
But I'm not quite ready to put him there yet because he's still in the prime of his career.
Sure.
Like we're talking these other guys we're talking about. Like Brady's 40,
right?
Yeah,
and Federer's past what is considered the prime in tennis.
Brady's only got 5 more years left. So
yeah, exactly.
Oh, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, is he saying that? Because I don't follow football business, but I mean, I think
I think he's got 2 or 3 years left. I think he
doesn't it feel like he wins this and retires? Just
not a chance in hell. No.
The owner forced Bill Belichick to trade their top prospect because Tom Brady said he's playing for 2 or 3 more years, and he didn't want there to be any controversy. He made the coach trade the player that he scouted.
They'll draft a quarterback in the draft this year to have somebody to develop, but Garoppolo was good enough to step in and start for Brady now. If Brady wasn't Brady, and that's the thing.
And he went undefeated with San Fran, so obviously he is good.
Yeah.
The last thing before we get back to hockey, though, is this. So I have a friend who lives in Minnesota and had Super Bowl tickets and was excited about it because there's just a good chance the Vikings were going to go. And now he's like, this is like he's going to the Super Bowl with the ultimate disgust in his mind because it's like this is the hardest thing. Think about being a Minnesota fan going to the Super Bowl. Okay, you either have to root for the evil empire that is, the New England Patriots, or the team that beat your team to get to the Super Bowl.
Yeah,
what do I do? How do I possibly resolve this in my head?
But they should have no beef with the Patriots. Like me as a Jet fan, we hate the Patriots.
Everybody has a beef with the Patriots.
Yeah,
but Minnesota is going to be pro New England because it's either rooting for the evil empire or rooting for the fan base that threw beer cans at your fans.
And that's who they're rooting against.
I don't think it's going to. That's a good question. I think that stadium's going to be pro.
Heck, we talked about this yesterday. Some of the Eagles couldn't even get restaurant reservations.
Is this Trump versus Clinton?
No, but some of the Eagles couldn't get restaurant reservations in Minnesota. They were complaining about it.
Yeah, but I read that was overblown. That restaurant that they were talking about was actually hard for anybody to get reservations, and they felt like because they were there for the Super Bowl, they should, get in.
Now, don't you think, Kev, if Alan Page called, or if name anybody,
Chuck Foreman,
they're going to give Alan Page the table?
Well, I can't answer that. Maybe. I mean,
definitely. I've been in the restaurant business. Trust me, they're going to give Alan Page the table.
Yeah.
Okay, moving back to hockey, I've got 3 goalie stats. I thought 3 goalie things to talk about. Really.
Okay, let's put it this way: would they have given it to Tom Brady?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes, but
they want Tom Brady in their restaurant.
But they'd make sure that his 5-year-old daughter wouldn't be there, right?
Right.
That was ridiculous.
Right. Okay, so three interesting hockey things today involving goalies. First comes out of the mouth of Max Talbot. Or not Max Talbot.
No, I was going to say a lot comes out of the mouth of Max Talbot.
Cam Talbot. Who announces today that the Oilers are going to make the playoffs. He's made a statement. He's gone. I like this.
I know.
I'm all for this. I love when a player does this. I love when I never hold it against a player for making this. I'm not the kind of guy who's like, oh, you can't mess it up or whatever and do this thing. I love it. I think this is great.
I love players who are
and I'm still one of the few people who think they have a shot. So
I love.
I was going to say this. I remember when Tom Rennie said that with the Rangers. Like the Rangers had to win 26 out of 30. And Rennie goes, we're going to do it. And they did do it. But they also had Jaromir Jagr and a really talented team. He tried it again after that, and it didn't do it. You know what I mean? Like, it's just it can happen sometimes. And Talbot went on a heck of a run with the Rangers, so he certainly has it in him. But I'm betting against that.
I love goaltenders who are suffering from delusions of grandeur. I mean, they have 47 points. And I believe the wild card is 57. It's 10 points. It's not out of the realm of possibility, but you're having to climb over not one, but there's 4 teams with 57 points. So if one of them slumps, one of the other three.
That's so confusing to me, Mike, whenever we think about that. And I've thought about that too, and I do that. But my favorite way to think about it is the point total you got to get to make the playoffs. Like I always think about that. Like let's say it's 98 points in the West, or whatever it's going to be. It's going to be somewhere around.
Let's say it's 94. They've played 49 games and they've got 47 points. So they'd have to have another 47 points in 33 games.
Right. So that's where you start.
47 out of 66 points.
Yeah, that's not happening.
No, that's the only way I can look at it, because like passing all these teams, it is so crazy. But I think
they would have to win like that number. They would have to win like 25 or 27 out of these 33 games.
Yeah, and they're going to be without Nugent Hopkins for a month. Remember, he's out 5 to 6 weeks, so they're going to be out him. Right. Their defense has been in chaos most of this year. I mean, I don't put anything past Connor McDavid. He's one of the best players in the league, maybe the best right now. But he needs a supporting cast. And right now, he hasn't been getting consistent production out of that supporting cast. And that's the reason why I don't think there's a chance that they're making the playoffs.
Yeah, the good news is we'll all forget about this proclamation in a year. We won't even remember.
Yeah, I'll remember. but like I said, I'm always good for it. I always think it's good. I don't hold it against them if they don't do it. I think I want to see, if I'm an Oilers fan or whatever, I want to see my goalie coming out and making this kind of a statement. I like when players make bold statements. I don't have a problem with it, and so many people on the internet will kill them for it. But I think it's a great thing. I think this is
like when Evander Kane said he'd score 50 goals.
Yeah, I think it's what you should do. I think this is what you should
come on. There's a point where it's laughable. Like I laughed when he made that statement. I did.
Now, if I'm an Oilers fan right now, I am psyched to make the statement, and it gives me like a little bit, and it's when a goalie does it though. The one thing I will throw out is this is not the statement for the goalie to make. That the one thing I think that this is a hard thing for a goalie. Like we need somebody else to come up with this.
But I think it's showing you that the goalie right now is probably the leader of the team.
And that's what it shows me, and that's something you don't really. That shows maybe a deeper issue, because this is not the goalie shouldn't be the one making this statement,
right? But he is.
Yes. All right. Next up, goalie issue. Matt Murray first off the ice today at the Penguins morning skate, which implies that he's back. And what does this mean for the Penguins? Obviously, a ton. Penguins are already playing really well. Do any of you guys think the Penguins won't make the playoffs?
I think they're making the playoffs.
I thought they were making it all year.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, so we're all, even though they're not, technically, are they in it now?
I'm not letting their little sputters fool me. I'm not.
Right, and we know the MO of Jim Rutherford. I would expect probably in the next 2 weeks, because he likes to be preemptive in his moves, he's going to make a trade. I would say probably for forward help, probably a center, because there's been a lot of talk about Pajot in Ottawa. Now Ottawa keeps making noises that they're not going to make moves, or that they're holding back at making moves to get a better return. But a guy like Pajot fits in perfectly. He's already signed. He signed for a couple more years. It's sort of like they need that Bonino replacement. And until they get it, I think they're going to be missing a little piece. But if they do get it, they're right back where they were again.
Yeah, I'm going to go back to the quote from Mike Sullivan at the start of the year when Rutherford informed him that it may take him a while to find that center he wants. And Mike Sullivan's response is, are my top two centers still Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin? Because I'm okay with whatever you're doing.
Right.
That's the case, right? And now Pajot to me is
that's
nothing.
Why they're gonna make the playoffs, and I think at some point their defense is gonna look better than it looks now, and I think they're gonna get in playoff mode. Now, it remains to be seen whether they can, play at the same level that they did in the postseason, but. It's certainly possible, and I still think this team is good enough to make the playoffs. And if you get an invitation to the party, you have a chance to wear the lampshade at the end of the night. So.
I think the team that's sickened by this right now, Kev, is Columbus, because Columbus has had a pretty good year, and now you come out of the All-Star break and you look at the standings, and Columbus is tied with Pittsburgh, and if the season ended today, it's Columbus versus Pittsburgh, and if you want to ruin a perfectly good year, it's facing Sidney Crosby in the first round and probably being the underdog.
Or you slay the dragon, Mike. I mean, sometimes
eventually they have to.
For sure, that could happen. But if you're Columbus, the thing that really saddens you is you look, west and look at a guy named Carlson who's sitting at 27 goals, and then you look at your own team and you're saying, well, we need to go out and add a score. Like, and look, I mean, I'm not faulting the Columbus Blue Jackets. They had protection problems. But, I'm sure no one anticipated that Karlsson was going to take a quantum leap in his development. And, he had 6 goals last season.
Yeah,
so.
The frustrating thing for them is that they were so much, when I talked to them last year, they so much wanted to get a bona fide scorer, and they wish we had that here, but we just don't have it, and they didn't feel like they had it, and they did. But would he have succeeded in that system? There's so many different
No, because he wouldn't have had the same opportunity.
Wow. Yeah, no, that's fair. I mean, but it means you don't know. I mean, Wenberg was injured and wasn't the same player, and so he might have gotten more of a shot. You just really don't know. But I didn't bring that up to as I said, I don't think it was the Blue Jackets' fault. You're going to lose somebody good, but I just think it's got to be frustrating to them that they didn't own Karlsson when he finally put his game together. So
here's what I'm hoping for them, though. You never know who the star is going to be in the playoffs. You never know who the guy is. Like Brian Rust, look at all the playoff goals he's had. Would we have ever even predicted that? No. See, sometimes you never know going into the playoffs. Even a guy with not a proven track record could be your leading scorer.
Yeah, but don't you think you need both? Like you need the.
I think you do. I think you
need
do.
The flag carrier, and that's what I think the Blue Jackets are lacking. I mean, their flag carriers are on defense, but I still think you need somebody up front who kind of is the guy. And then you got the tradition of the unknown goal scorer. That is an important aspect of it. It's somebody that you're not counting on who suddenly starts scoring a lot of big goals. But
I don't know if I see a quote flag carrier potentially available at the deadline. I mean, none of them goals. So
yeah, no, that you can't usually get those type guys. So, but they can improve. They could improve their offense, and we've talked about them the last couple of times on the show, and they're a good team. They're hard to play against. When their defense is going well, it's a good defense. I love their goaltending. They just haven't been quite right. And I mentioned before, and there's no question that Tortorella has been, frustrated by this team. He just wants it because I think he knows, like he's been around a long time. He knows, as we all do, that this team has a lot of potential. We've seen it for the last couple of seasons, even in the bad year that they had. 2 years ago, you could still see that it was a team on the rise. So, I rule nothing out with Columbus. Like, they could go on a run and.
I mean, they have a goalie that could shut you down.
Oh, for sure, and then and a defense that can really move the puck, and they got some guys up front. It's not like they have nothing. They just could use a little boost. That's all.
Yeah. No, I mean, the Penguins really, their success has come a lot from their power play. Really has just taken over lately, and that is a sign of starting to gear up in playoff mode to me. Like when your power play starts to take over, that's when your team is starting to think, okay, this is because the goaltending and power plays are always the thing that you have to win with in the playoffs, and their power plays and they're starting to score more goals. I mean, I wrote an article about them in December about what was wrong with the Penguins, and their goal scoring at that point was really low compared to the rest of the NHL for what you'd expect from the Penguins, and that's completely. I mean, they're just crazy tough. I mean, what team is not going to make the playoffs in your opinion in the East? I mean, when you look at this now, the teams that are in it. That's the thing. Like, is Boston for real? Like, is Boston in now?
Oh yeah, Boston's for real. Boston.
Even if Boston isn't for real, they've built up such a lead, Kev, that they're 20 points ahead of fourth place in the Atlantic, so they're in.
Oh, they are. What you see is what you get in the Atlantic.
Yeah, that's it. You got the 3 teams; they're all in.
Yeah, they're in. I mean, it's the shuffle is going to be in the Rangers. If Larry Brooks has covered that team forever, and I
still don't buy the story, Kev.
He's hardwired in, and I don't know that there. I don't disagree with Russ. I did say this. I've been saying it on radio all week. I don't see, nor do I have any evidence from talking to to GMs around the league that the Rangers are in the wholesale evacuation mode.
Yeah,
right.
You know,
Like proof of that, Kev. Why get Cody McLeod if you're selling off?
No, I agree with all that. However, saying that, I think to me it felt like a kind of a trial balloon to sort of remind folks that this is this team's in trouble, and I think they all kind of sense that, and so there could be some at least a move or two. I just don't see him trading Ryan McDonough.
Right.
No, I don't.
Russ said yesterday, and I bought into this, that this was maybe like you said, a trial balloon in terms of motivating that team, because they're without Kreider, they're without Shattenkirk. We don't know how long they're both going to be out, and they need more out of the players who are healthy. But if you look at it, they're only a point out of the wild card spot, and I could see a scenario where they try to move the UFAs, where they try to move Nash, they try to move Grabner, especially Grabner because his salary is so ridiculously reasonable. But you're talking about McDonough, who's their leader, who's making a reasonable amount. Kev, that smacks of a summer deal, not a deal at the deadline.
Yep. I'm with you on that. And also, why trade McDonough? Like, the top pairing defensemen are the hardest guys to find. Ask the Edmonton Oilers.
Unless who I really like is not Ryan McDonough. He's not.
Unless they think, and this is the dilemma that everybody has to think of, or the teams that have these players have to think about. Doughty, McDonough, Carlson, Ekman-Larsson, they'll all be in their late 20s when they come up for free agency if they haven't signed a new deal in the summer of 2019. That in today's NHL is bordering on almost being over the hill, because 31, 32 years old, they don't want to sign these guys to long-term extensions. So if they're demanding 7-8 year deals, maybe some of these teams don't want to sign these guys because they realize.
But here, this is a good time to discuss this point.
Yeah.
And I know Russ will have an opinion on this for sure. But are we headed toward where baseball is at right now? There are a bunch of guys sitting in baseball now because everyone's not capped out, but luxury taxed out, and they don't want to give them even a sixth year. I mean, what's the Red Sox offer to Martinez? A 5-year deal.
Right.
6-7 years ago or 3 years ago, Martinez would be looking at an 8-year deal, and I wonder whether we're heading there in hockey that the guy won't be able to get that. You can get that 8-year deal when you're 24 or 23, but you're not going to be able to get it if you're 29 or 30. What do you think?
I think that's fair. I think that's real. But unlike baseball, like example, when Derek Jeter took over Florida and he's literally dismantling the whole team, even a team that wants to bottom out in the NHL isn't going to dismantle every good part they have, because, like, again, I keep telling people, right, even if you have Ryan McDonough, even if you want to reshuffle, when you reshuffle and you go for that younger defenseman, he's still going to take 3 years, even if he's a great young defenseman. And then what are you doing with Henrik Lundqvist? Because he's the one guy not mentioned in this article, and you're just going to have Lundqvist sit through a rebuild knowing that there's no chance for him to win the Stanley Cup in his career? I want to be the guy who walks up to him and tells him that.
And Russ, I said because his contract is immovable.
I don't think it is. I disagree. No, I disagree. I think
he's a great goaltender, but I think a goaltender who's about 34 years old
having a Vezina caliber year.
No, I do think that.
So how many guys? If you could tell a GM now, a team that let's say you could tell Garth Snow, and Ledecky, you could have Henrik Lundqvist. You don't think they would take him, and with the good cap situation they have to try and actually win a Stanley Cup with their scoring? I think they would do it tomorrow. With
3 more years at $8.5 million, I think they would care. I think they would.
I don't think they would care. I don't actually.
I think they would ask for a haircut from the Rangers if they were. Yeah,
they might. But I also think that if they looked at it, I think they would have a meeting and say, we have the second best scoring or the best scoring in the league. Now we could shore up our worst position here.
Well, let me flip it to the team in the Western Conference, who I think sort of mirrors.
Before we go there,
go ahead.
One more thought on these. My third goalie point here.
Yeah.
And that is that Brian Elliott's been placed on injured reserve by the Flyers.
Right.
this was supposed to be a minor injury. He was supposed to be back by after the All-Star game. Wasn't going to be a problem at all. It's retroactive. The Flyers are just in the playoffs. Elliott has been absolutely playing their workhorse of the load. He's been very good.
Yeah.
I don't think he's the reason they're in the playoffs or not, but I think that he's been very good. They have not trusted Neuwirth very much at all this year. Neuwirth is actually sick right now. So there's rumors that that both Leon and Stolarz will be called up.
Alex Lyon,
out of
from Lehigh Valley.
But will this do the Flyers think about someone like a Jimmy Howard or something like that? That's the question that came up to me today.
They won't do it.
Yeah.
No,
it's a short-term thing. I mean, if it was a long-term thing, then yeah, maybe they would think about that.
Is it true? I mean, the question is, this is Brian. We've seen this situation before. Is it short-term or Elliott's a warrior. He'll play through a lot of stuff. He plays through injuries. He plays through stuff all the time.
Right.
When he's put on IR, I worry a little bit because that's.
IR could be 2 weeks, Zach.
Yeah,
it could be 2 weeks, right? It could be, but just to bring it up.
Now, look, if you want to say, did the Flyers overusing him get him to the IR? I think you have to look at that. Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's definitely something you should look at too.
So now, but again, they had Neuwirth for a reason. I think now they're going to have to test their own ability to overcome this because that's the roster they put together. But I think Alex Lyon, at least Stolarz, I don't think can play this year. I don't even know if he's skating. I don't think he's even in the situation. Alex Lyon definitely.
Okay, yeah. So
now in the West. What came out a couple weeks ago was that Corey Crawford was done for the year, and then right during the All-Star break, it said that he may be back pretty soon, maybe even be back this week. I mean, it's really a cloudy situation. But if you look at the standings, they're at 53 points. They're 4 points behind the wild card team.
One thought, Mike. Sorry.
Yeah.
One quick thought because I'm leaving in 1 second.
Yeah.
I forgot. They do have Dustin Tokarski, who does have playoff experience. It is possible he could get into the mix.
Yeah.
There you go.
With Chicago, it's like if Crawford is available, if he's healthy, then I think there's a chance, Kev, that they'll make a run for the playoffs. There's a school of thought that if he's out for the year, that they should be sellers, that they should try to clear some salary cap space. I don't know if that's something that Stan Bowman would think about, but what do you think?
I don't think so because the guys. They can't move these guys. These guys are all on lengthy contracts. So, you're kind of, you can't go into seller's mode. I mean, you're kind of stuck with this group, so you've got to figure out a way to get it moving because you're not going to trade any of these guys. You're not trading Seabrook or, Duncan Keith. So you got to figure out a way how to integrate, who they are today, into a team moving forward. So, I don't see that they would have a whole lot of guys to move. They might be able to move one or two if they fall completely out of it of just, kind of spare parts. But
I also don't see that mentality in Chicago. It would take a lot, wouldn't it? I mean,
I don't see them ever being, well, I mean, never say never, but I don't see them being, sellers this quickly. I'm reasonably confident that they feel as Cam Talbot does, they being Blackhawks, that they're in the playoffs. I mean, although, boy, I mean, I just wrote on this yesterday. Tyler Sagan, and I thought this was a tremendous quote. We asked him what he thought about the Central Division, what it will look like, the race going down the wire, and he says, I think his quote was, "It will look like nothing we've ever seen before." And I knew exactly what he was saying. Like, he was even talking about the Blackhawks. Like, there's so many people that are writing, "Oh man, the Blackhawks, they look terrible," and everything else. And he basically implied through his quote, I'm not getting that impression when I'm playing against them.
Right. I've heard a lot. It's so funny.
He just said, he basically said, this is still a good team. They're in last place. And he goes, and it's not like they're playing terribly or anything. I looked at the records, and every team in that division won 6, 7, or 8 games in the last 10, except for the Blackhawks, and they won 4. They went 4, 5, and 1. So they got 9 out of 10 points.
Right.
So it's not like they've had a total collapse over the last 10 games. So
no. And there's so much experience there. You have to think, that experience kicks in the second half of the season, and it just they know what they have to do, and they don't care about. I mean, no one on the Blackhawk team cares about where they finish, if they're in the playoffs. Like, it doesn't mean a thing to them.
No, they just want to get into eighth. They just want to get into eighth, and with them, like LA a few years ago, if they get into eighth, nobody wants to face them. With Kane and Taves, nobody, if Pittsburgh is the second wild card, do you think Tampa wants to face Pittsburgh? Not a chance in hell. But
I'll throw this out to you guys. The season ends today. The Blackhawks finish in 8th. The Vegas Knights finish in 1st. And who are you picking?
Blackhawks are favored. The Blackhawks are favored in that series.
Are you picking the Blackhawks to win that series, Mike?
I would.
Wow, I'd have to think about it. That's funny you should bring that up, because I talked about how I wrote Central. Today I'm writing Vegas. Are they a playoff team?
Right.
I mean, are they a team that could perform well in the playoffs? And my conclusion is, they are. Like, no one's picking them to win the cup, but no one's saying it's impossible either, because that's where this team is.
Right. Right.
And, I talked to a bunch of players and stuff at the All-Star game, and everybody said the same thing. Hard to play against. Good speed. That arena's tough. That arena's tough to win in, because they just get jacked.
I heard somebody say that they think they could succeed in the playoffs, but they've been playing in playoff mode, and through if you get to the end of the season, they've been playing in playoff mode for 82 games. Will they be burned out of playing playoff mode?
I brought it on the show.
Yeah, no, you can't. Yeah, and there's just no way to know them, because there's never been anyone that's had to do that. Although David Poyle says over the last 5 or 6 years, it's the minute you start the season, it feels like you're in playoff mode now, because it's so tight that if you screw up and have a bad 10-game period, you can't recover from it.
A really funny quote from Bill Daly, who said something like, I feel bad for the next expansion team. Like if it is Seattle, like what, like no matter what happens here, I mean, they could come in and they could be very good, but the pressure now on the expansion team is just going to be unbelievable.
Yeah, well, but Kevin, Bettman said in Tampa that the rules for expansion are going to be the same, especially since they're going to be paying $150 million more for that team.
Yeah, well, he didn't say it like that. That was my question, by the way, to him. And what he basically said is that Seattle is pretty sure Seattle's going to demand that the rules will be the same.
Yeah,
anybody will.
Yeah, so
I think, and then anybody has the right to. I mean, if they're putting that kind of money, I think at this point, you can't sit there and tell. It's not fair even to them at this point to say you're not going to have as good a situation as another team just had.
Well, maybe they should tell these teams, well, if you pay us $2 billion each, and I'm not sure the owners would go against this, you can have the top player off every team.
Or you can take 2 players from every team. That's
why don't we finish up with what we were talking, what your blog was about? Because Evander Kane sweepstakes is so hard to get my hand on. I'm just so frustrated by it. I have some people who tell me that it's vastly overrated, that there's like 2 or 3 teams that are really interested, and there's a lot of apprehension and people are not sure what to do. Then I have other people who tell me as many as 10 to 12 teams are interested. So I came up with 6 teams that seem to be the general consensus through the people I'm talking to. But I want to know what you think on this, Kevin. Do you agree?
I think it's a small group.
Okay, you think it's a small group?
I think there are a lot of teams that are concerned about it, and I think there are some people that are still kind of on the fence about it. But for the most part, and the price is so tough that I think that scared some people away. So, I mean, will there be more come, trade deadline? Also, there's very few players in the marketplace, and that's sort of influencing it as well. I mean, at some point, if there's not enough players, and you want some help, you may have to turn to that. So,
yeah, I mean, I think Patrick Maroon is the name that's now coming up a lot when I'm talking to people as like a person who's going to be in the marketplace, and that adds something. I mean, he's not.
That would actually add a significant piece, but
yeah,
if Cam Talbot is right, that's not going to happen.
That's true.
Yeah, and I mean every report coming out of Buffalo, and the insiders got like Darren Drager or Pierre LeBrun, they're all saying that Jason Botterill is looking for 3 to 4 pieces for Kane. And I just don't know whether that's realistic. I mean, the conditional draft pick in case he re-signs, fine. I don't think many teams are going to have a problem with that because, if they don't re-sign the guy, if he's just a mercenary, a rental, then that doesn't really factor in. Right. But it's the number one and it's the top prospect or a young NHL player. I mean, you're really talking about a fairly steep price for a guy who on the ice, I think is, a very good power forward. Off the ice, I mean, he has the ability to sort of undermine like the camaraderie of a team with the stuff that he's pulled off in Buffalo and in Winnipeg. So I don't know if I would want that random element on my roster when it came to playoff time.
When you call someone a mercenary, is it? I mean, aren't you a mercenary too?
Not we all.
I mean, the thing about I don't think people's apprehension is about Kane personally, because everyone I think that I talk to believe that he can get it. He's not going to be a problem for a stretch run and a playoff run, right? Like that's not going to be an issue.
Yeah. The problem is here's the problem with that thinking, and I actually had this very conversation with a general manager who is interested in Kane. He said the problem is if you're going to pay a big price for him,
right,
then you're going to entertain the idea that you might keep him long term.
Right, that's true.
That's because he says you can't just give someone a first round pick and one of your better prospects. And I don't think people are worried about the third and fourth pieces because usually they're guys that a B prospect and maybe a conditional pick if they sign them. But so now he says now you got to ask yourself two questions like how much can he help now and would we want to sign him for 3 or 4 more years. So
right. Yeah, no, I think that's really accurate. And so we got to get going here, but I just wanted to say, thanks Kevin for joining us today.
Yep.
And we look forward to talking to you again. Maybe, hopefully, we'll talk to you before you go, but maybe not. So if we don't talk to you before you go to the Olympics, enjoy that. I'm going to talk to you about your Olympic team, though. I'm going to give you a ring later on.
Yep, sounds good. See you later, guys.
All right, guys. Thanks. Thanks so much for supporting the show. Thanks for you can go to patreon.com/hockey and help us out. We really appreciate that, and it matters a lot. So thank you so much for those of you who do. We don't say it enough, but thank you. And remember to check out the rumor chart. It's being updated constantly. We're only a month out here, so things are getting crazier, and they're coming into focus very slowly. I mean, this is the slowest I've really ever felt like it's ever come into focus for me, at least. It's the hardest. This has been the hardest year to get my hands on things because of certain players. Like if Evander Kane was actually traded, I think things would clear up a lot. But I think that is a problem right now.
And there are a lot of sellers. There are at least 8 sellers already.
There are. And I just got a text from somebody about Chicago who said, Chicago a seller? Question mark. Didn't they just trade for Duclair? This is like a scout in the league watching the show right now. That's
not a buy move. That's Arizona being stupid move. That's them giving up on a young player.
That's a buy move. I mean, this is a scout, and I agree with him. I think it's a total buy move. I don't think that's Chicago. That's Chicago.
It's a low risk move. They didn't give up any. They gave up a guy that they recognized they signed him for too much. They really didn't give up anything for Duclair. So it's a no lose for them. If they don't like him, they don't qualify him.
True. All right, well, we'll be back again tomorrow, guys. Remember, without the buzz, it is just hockey. We will talk to you then.